What's up, everybody? I'm the Jocked Geek, and here today is my first ever video. So I'm so excited to share with you today the first comic book I got into. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, written by Ed Brubaker and art by Steve Epting. Colorist Frank D'Armana, starring Steve Rogers as Captain America, Nick Fury, Sharon Carter as Agent 13, Red Skull, General Alexander Lukin, Crossbones, Red Guardian, Union Jack, Mother Knight, Jack Monroe as Nomad, and some of the flashback characters such as Namor, Jim Hammond as the Human Torch, Thomas Raymond as Toro, and Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier, with some surprise cameos from Falcon and Iron Man. There's a little bit of blood, some mildly censored violence, and language. Mild language, though. There's not a lot. There's nothing too crazy here, dialed down by Steve Epting's muted color tone. This gives a more mystery than shock. Brutal kills are muted by this. This lets older kids be able to read and not have to deal with anything gory or anything like that. That is not in this book. Some language in this book is censored. If you're older, you can figure it out, but it lets the younger kids not be able to know, like, oh, this person said this word or that word, which is something I've really enjoyed about comics, is that they tend to censor that sort of stuff. There is a little bit of blood with some of the assassinated kills, but it's only when they're inspecting a body or murder. This is a Captain America crime thriller. Different from the movie adaptation, that is a political thriller. The comic focuses on the Winter Soldier specifically. The Cosmic Cube, also known as the Tesseract in the MCU, is the main MacGuffin. The cube has been messing with Cap's head. In the halfway point, the cube reveals that Bucky is the Winter Soldier to torment Captain America. The question is, do you kill the empty shell that was your friend, or save him in hopes to have your friend made whole again? Art, 8.5 out of 10. It establishes a perfect tone for the story. All of Steve Epting's art is 10 out of 10. However, there are a few other artists that are in this book, and I just didn't enjoy their taste as much as Steve Epting. Steve Epting did phenomenal 10 out of 10 artwork on him. Now for writing, I gotta say, 10 out of 10. Honestly, I loved being more intrigued in the writing than the art. It really let me soak into the story, what they're saying, getting all that information. And if I read a comic book and I am loving the story, I'm loving the writing more than I'm loving the art, then it's probably a really, really good comic book. Plot, 7 out of 10. Ed keeps the core of the story about Steve and Bucky and sets up his 8-year run on Captain America. However, there is some drawback to that. There's just not a lot of closure for a lot of things, but that's kind of the point, is this is his setup for his 8-year run. So I do feel like the second act is better than the final act, however, because the final act has some setups that don't really get paid off in this book. It's for some other books down the line, but it's still a really great plot. I happen to enjoy the movie a little bit more on the plot, but really diving into the Winter Soldier and having it about the Winter Soldier. Story, 10 out of 10. Cap's story and narration really gets you into his head and his mind, how he is going about this situation, finding out that his best friend is now probably one of his toughest enemies he has ever faced. And really diving deep into the backstory of the Winter Soldier, how he got there, what his surgeries were like, some of his missions was so interesting. I absolutely loved it, and everything that they did with Steve and Bucky, and how much Steve really needed Bucky in his life. He was the only person that ever understood him. And something else that I really liked about this story is they made Bucky and Cap, they had them kind of go back to some of the older times in the 1940s. They have Namor, they have the Human Torch and his sidekick Toro. So really going back and seeing them for an issue was really fun to see. And something else very interesting that they did with this book is they had Bucky be kind of the assassin of the team. Even though he was kind of the Boy Scout on the outside, giving that hope for American teens during the time, really, behind the scenes, he was a better soldier than even Captain America. And he had to do some things that Captain America couldn't do because of his public fame. That's why Bucky did the dirty work. Anyways, with all that said, I would say Captain America the Winter Soldier is a 9 out of 10 must read. Go and pick up a copy at any of your local stores. I got my copy from Barnes & Noble, 15 bucks. Man, such a great read, and it is a perfect entry into, I would say, comics in general. If you love Captain America, gotta read it. If you're trying to get into comics, this was my start. Man, it's been an awesome time with that. Really love Captain America. I mean, come on. Cap's my favorite hero. Such an inspiration of what America is supposed to be like and how we don't have to give up on our friends. Hey, if you liked this video and you thought it was helpful for starting up your journey into comic books, or you just wanted to see someone's thoughts on a comic that you were thinking about getting, just hit that like button, man. I really appreciate that. That really helps me a lot. I'm going to get all these done, so I'm going to give you my reviews on them, on what I think of an age rating, a little bit of details with that, just so you know kind of what's in the book. If you're kind of worried about, oh, is there too much blood, if there's too much language, is there something inappropriate, I'm going to cover all that for you so you don't have to worry. You'll know exactly what's going to happen diving deep in without having spoilers, which is a big deal. Also, if you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to get all these done as soon as possible out to you guys so you know what's coming up next. All right. Thank you so much. Hasta lasagna, my friendly pastas. God bless.